So, um, my mom's from India, obviously, maybe not obviously. This is my mom dancing Kathak North Indian classical style. And I really just want to talk about my mom a little bit because I wouldn't be who I am without her. She's an Indian feminist in a time where that, was an unusual thing. So she went to a very prestigious art school in Bombay. She was a textile designer in Bombay. Didn't really like the rat race, so moved to Delhi. She was a flight attendant in the late 60s, early 70s, which is where she met my dad, who is an Oregon farm boy, and after college was trying to avoid Vietnam, so joined the Peace Corps. And India was his top pick, and he got his top pick. And he was stationed in central India, coincidentally in the same state my mom grew up in, Madhya Pradesh. But the Peace Corps office in Delhi, they had meetings and maybe they went and partied once in a while. So that's how they met, because my mom's older sister was the secretary in the Peace Corps office. And my family's Christian, so she set them up on a date. So anyway, that's a little off track. So back to my mom. So my mom was the first person in her family to come to America. So she's just a fighter in so many ways. My parents didn't stay married. They divorced when I was like 7. My mom remarried many times, which is also very unusual for an Indian woman. So yeah, she's a painter and a dancer. And I grew up kind of watching her be a painter and a dancer in her way. She would perform at Indian functions, and my sister and I would just sit and watch. And my love of music definitely comes from her. My childhood was kind of her homesick immigrant experience, like living in rural Oregon City and, being like, where are the brown people? There's no rice here. And I'm waiting just by the mailbox for those aerogram letters from India. And so yeah, lots of Bollywood, old Bollywood tapes. And if she didn't have the tape of the soundtrack she wanted to hear, she would just record her own into a little tape recorder. So this is really important for her, that for her to share like her Indian culture with me and my sister. Oh, you think so? Oh, I think I'm not speaking into it. There we go. Sorry. Thank you for telling me. Just yell at me when I don't get it right. Also, I'm coming out of the speakers in the back, so if that's weird. These are our DJ speakers. That's why it's kind of might be disorienting. So my mom would take us to like Hindustani classical concerts, to see Ravi Shankar and Zakir Hussain, and I don't think I really cared, until much later, which is going to kind of be the arc of this story. So I'm going to go here. Oh, sure, thanks. Okay, this is the book I'm named after, Gitanjali. It's 2 names, Gita, which means song or prayer, and Anjali, which means offering. And when my mom, this is a classic book of Indian poetry by Tagore. He wrote like the Indian national anthem. He's kind of India's famous Bengali poet. I don't know, my mom was in grade school or something, and they studied the poems in this book, and she said, that's what I'm naming my first daughter. So Gitanjali means song offering or prayer offering. And then I, however many decades later became a DJ. So it's kind of just, I wanted to note that I was already, predetermined. Okay, you can go to the next one, please. All right, here's my mom and dad. Yeah. I know I sent you a million photos, and I didn't put all the photos of my dad on the farm, and I just was like, you guys don't need to see that. But anyway, there's my mom and dad getting married. Okay, that's great. No, we can go to the next one. Okay. So this is me at the end of my PSU days, where I was studying oil painting and my gothy self, which maybe hasn't changed much. So talking about my childhood just a little bit, I really didn't see myself as Indian. I kind of thought I was white. I think either I wanted to be white, or even though I grew up with a lot of other mixed families, believe it or not, in the 70s in Oregon, there were other half Indian families here. So I grew up with a lot of other mixed families. One of our really close family friends, the mom was Mexican American and the dad was Indian. So I had like these two brothers who were also half Indian. I just didn't ever see, my face and myself reflected in anybody. And I think, it took me decades to realize, I think that was internalized racism. I mean, I think I was embarrassed of my immigrant mom. I think, at least later in my teenage years, like, I was embarrassed that our house smelled like spices. And I was embarrassed that, Indian relatives came from India and Dubai, and like we sponsored them and they lived with us in our apartment basement apartment in Philly. And kids would come over and make fun of the smells of all the food. And it was, I think all that embarrassment was like, I wasn't prepared to like own all of that yet. So as I go through this little talk about myself, I'm just gonna give you little updates on the soundtrack of my life. So in my teen years, I was definitely like a bad girl, got in a lot of trouble. We lived in Philly at that point, and I listened to a lot of metal, like Danzig and Iron Maiden and Metallica, and then I was also obsessed with Morrissey. Okay, so this is me, end of college. My dream job after graduating from PSU was working at PALS. I was like, what am I gonna do with a painting degree? I'm gonna work at PALS, because this is 1996, and that's where all the cool, weird kids worked in Portland. Okay, who else grew up here? Any 90s Portland kids? Okay, there's like 5 of us. That's where I found my people. That's where I met the incredible kid. I always say, college was one degree, and then working at PALS was like a whole nother re-education, because I mean, obviously, it's the world's largest bookstore. You're surrounded by a million books, and I think, I went home with a book every day. I'm just like, I'm a collector, and I also just like love information. So I just kind of found my friends there and my people, and I want to talk about that, but I jumped ahead a hair, because when I was still at PSU, there was my paintings were kind of more color field like this, and I did some kind of dark, drippy, like tree paintings and stuff, but there was really no Indian imagery in my work, except for one piece, and I don't remember the class, it was basic design or intro to drawing or what it was, but they said, everybody's gonna do a self-portrait, measure the width of your body and the length of your body. And so it'll be kind of a rectangle shape of your dimensions, but the interior can be whatever you want. And so I took some vintage pink Indian fabric, and then I kind of made a border, and then I painted some like, some little like Indian auspicious dots and like all the kind of florally stuff, and the inside was kind of a charcoal, like gray scale charcoal, abstract self-portrait. And that was significant. That was the first time I was like, oh, there's some Indian imagery in my work. So I think you can go to the next one if you don't mind. Thanks. Okay, so I'm working at PALS. There's kind of these 4 years in between graduating and discovering DJing, and it was maybe an identity crisis, I'm not sure. I started studying Hindi with a teacher in Beaverton, and I was kind of confident, like, I got this. I grew up with Hindi. I knew Hindi when I was a kid. The sounds are very familiar to me. I know these words. Didn't do my homework, so didn't do so great. But then I started studying Indian classical dance, and because of the immigration laws here in the States, a lot of the tech workers in the west suburbs are, a lot of the Indian immigrants that come here, they are tech workers, right? As opposed to the UK, where, because of the British Commonwealth, more working class South Asian immigrants could come. So here we have more tech workers, and a lot of the tech workers here in Portland area are South Indian. So the classical dance I could take, and I had my choice of like 10 teachers, was Bharatanatyam, what some people call temple dancing. So I started studying that, even though what I really wanted to study was Kathak, the North Indian style that you saw the photo of my mom doing. So I'm driving to Beaverton, I'm working at PALS, I'm going to my Indian teacher's like garage and dancing with like children. And I'm working on this show of self-portraits. So it was like 99. Powell's builds that, they tear down the old orange room and they built that 4-story tower that's on the corner of Cooch and 11th. And there's a gallery, right, in the Pearl Room. So I asked my coworkers, hey, can I have a show? And they're like, sure. So I'm working on this show. You can click through. So meanwhile, I'm doing this show kind of, okay, I'm gonna explore my identity as a South Asian woman. I'm gonna like embrace who I am. I'm also studying dance with 2 different teachers because a Kathak teacher did come from India for 3 months. So this is me performing at the Newmark. Very awkward. Look, I'm so awkward. You can click. But then meanwhile, I'm kind of like, I'm living this double life, right? I'm like at PALS, drinking, smoking, partying with my PALS friends. You can keep clicking. Here I am at India Day. So I'm 24, they're 16. When I showed up for the first dance practice with this teacher, I pull up in my muscle car, and they're like all like, what high school do you go to? I'm like, I work at PALS. I already finished college. Okay, you can click through. So here I am. Just want to mention this, just part of this show that I did of self-portraits, and these are just a few of them. There's more that I didn't include, was this is the era of Gwen Stefani and Madonna kind of like, we're going to wear bindis. And I was really pissed about it. I was young, and I think there's more nuance about that stuff now. But part of the message I was trying to express in my show was, okay, these are our things that we grew up with that are precious to us, and you can't take them, right? And so this is kind of me with the swastika, which is, you know, I think most people know it's like an ancient symbol from around the world, and swastik literally means auspicious. So that was kind of me like doing some reclaiming here. Okay, you can click through. Here I am, really awkward. You can click through. You can click. Okay, this is the Bharatanatyam style. You can keep clicking. Okay, here's one more photo I did, just a mannequin hand with some henna. Okay, this is a great place to stop for a second. So when I was 16, it was kind of like a initiation to adulthood. My mom said, I'm going to sit you and your sister down and we're going to watch this movie. This is Pakiza. And also, I'm going to make you watch this other movie. Will you play it? Thank you. Okay, so I told you my mom grew up in central India in Madhya Pradesh, but she moved to Bombay when she was like 17 to go to art school. She was a textile designer. She didn't stick with that very long, but she did continue her Kathak dance, and she studied with the dancer in this piece is Gopi Krishna, very famous Kathak dancer, but he really moved into Bollywood. Things are changing, but in India, musicians and dancers are considered, I mean, it's okay if men are musicians and dancers and they go on the road and they're together. But once a woman kind of joins like a band of traveling, musicians, is kind of not a good look, and usually families are gonna say no unless they're chaperoned. If you're from a musical family, then of course that's a different story. But it's just, because women hold the honor for their family, it's like doesn't look good for the rest of the family. Okay, so back to this movie. This is Pakiza, filmed it throughout this kind of mid-60s. This is the actress Meena Kumari. She was married to the director. They got divorced halfway through filming, so they shelved it. 1972, they finished it. She looks really different in this different scenes. And then she died, like maybe that year. She was a poet and like basically died of cirrhosis of the liver, and it came out posthumously, but it's an iconic movie in Bollywood. Everybody loves this movie. okay, maybe not everybody, but it's like a lot of people's favorites. People are really, really drawn to her character. And I also am really drawn to her character in this movie. She, so she plays a courtesan, essentially, which the Urdu word is taiwaf. So a courtesan in the idea of a geisha, like a dancer, a poet, a singer. The women who are all taiwafs, they live together. They don't typically get married, though they might have, a partner or like a monogamous lover, but they might also be open to other relations. And there's like a madam type individual who runs the household. She was an inspiration for that photo show for me because she really represented like freedom and her ability to be able to like move and present her body in a way that was natural to her. Like a free spirit, living outside of like the typical family arrangement, and just strength and beauty. Strength and beauty. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me all the way. So that's kind of where that portion ends. You can click to the next one. Okay, perfect. So I'm working at Powell's. Me and some other coworkers. I mean, I wasn't one of the initiators, but I was definitely there from like one of the very first meetings. We decided to organize with ILW, International Longshore and Warehouse Workers, and we formed our own Local 5, and we had a lot of meetings, a lot of union actions, walkouts, picket lines, a lot of meetings, and a lot of parties. And in that was the environment. That was this like perfect storm where Anjali and the kid were born. The kid and I were both involved. He was much more involved than I was. The incredible kid, my DJ partner, he was the spokesperson for the union. So, May Day 2000, the WTO in Seattle, all that kind of perfect storm happening. We had the Teamsters on our side. We would shut down 10th and 10th Street and have there were May Day parades through Portland that were radical. We partied with the Wobblies, and for me, growing up in Oregon, my grandfather worked at the paper mill in Oregon City. My dad worked there for decades. I even worked there 2 summers because they would hire children of workers if you were in college. All the other kids that I worked with, their parents worked in the office. My dad actually worked in the mill, and they put me on a shift. I got to work with my dad. So kind of coming back to Powell's, like having all this like working class struggle and fight for a living wage, for cost of living adjustments, for maintaining our benefits, that all so tied in with where I'd come from my Oregon roots. That we had all these parties, and all the parties were DJ'd by the kid and some other dude coworkers of ours. And so at one point I was just like, we're labeling books at Powell's. Hey, will you show me how to DJ? He's like, sure. So he calls me up, and this is landline days, 2000. Do you want to DJ? There's a house party this weekend. Yeah, let me think about it. I hang up the phone. I'm like, what am I thinking? Of course I do. Call him right back. So I show up. This is like us. We came up in the era of, the one genre kind of all vinyl scratch DJ, the kind of the like exclusive boys club, like turntablist. I'd never seen a woman DJ before. I just loved music and was really obsessed with Britpop, and that's actually how I kind of got into DJing, is because I just was like, I want to share all this cool music. I saw the Pulp back jacket over here. So yeah, I was like a huge fan of Jarvis Cocker and Blur and Suede, and I really, really didn't listen to any like American indie rock. I really listened to just like British pop, and so that was my angle. I was like, hey, I have all this music that nobody knows, nobody listens to. I think I'd be good at this. So we do our first gig together, and I'm sure my coworkers are being very kind, but they all it was like instant success. They loved my DJing. But I would slip in like a little Asian Underground over here, a little State of Bengal, a little Bad Martian Shri. And I had one Bhangra CD. And Bhangra, the little dance we did in the beginning, I didn't really explain too much about it. It's historically, people say it's about 500 years old. Historically, it's a harvest dance done by men in the spring when they harvest the winter wheat. The holiday is called Vaisakhi. So that's kind of where it comes from, and it's traditionally a dance only done by men, and in some families, really conservative families, it's still only danced by men. My family's from a different part of India, but Bhangra is like the party music of the South Asian diaspora. Like wherever you grow up, if it's, Birmingham, UK, you're in Canada, you're in LA, wherever you are, at least in the diaspora, maybe not in India so much, because it's really a regional sound. It's in Punjabi, as opposed to Bollywood, which is in Hindi, and more people speak Hindi than Punjabi. But I had this one Bhangra CD, and I play this track, and the kid's like, whoa, what is that music? I need that music. And I was like, okay, we have to go to the Indian grocery store. That's the only way you can find this music. So true. So I discovered this whole world that I didn't know about because of the British, kind of the British Commonwealth, and after after the British left in 1947, they split South Asia, right, into India and Pakistan, the line right down the middle of Punjab. So after the British leave, then there's like open policy for immigrants from Punjab to move to the UK to work in factories. So the Midlands is like where modern Bhangra comes from, Birmingham specifically, which is also the home of metal. So it was kind of like I had this view of my Indian heritage through my mom's lens of her childhood from the 50s and 60s. And, I grew up with some Bollywood disco, some Nazi Hassan, but this was like a thing I could like cling to. I already had my like kind of Anglophile, like British music obsession. And then I was studying Indian dance and like figuring out my identity. And then I discovered this entire world of UK, Punjabi music, but to go with it, of course, I worked at Powell's, right? So there are all the books, like Meera Syal, one of my favorite writers, of course, Jhumpa Lahiri here in America. My show was really, of course, my show was inspired by Cindy Sherman, but there's another Indian British artist, Chilla Kumari Burman. I was really inspired by her. So I just kind of discovered this whole world of artists that were already working for decades, building for decades, like from the 50s, 60s, 70s, whereas in America, Indians really couldn't move here until 1965. That's when the immigration laws changed. And because our immigration laws are so different here, people moved here to go to grad school to become doctors and engineers. We didn't have, obviously, like in big cities, there are more working class South Asians, but kind of on the West Coast, not so much. That's more of an East Coast thing. So I really, really, the kid and I, we clung to this music. We'd never, because my family's not from this part of India, I never heard anything quite like it. I mean, there are elements of Bhangra in Bollywood, so it's familiar to me, but it wasn't like my people's music. So, I don't know, just mixed with that working class struggle of trying, and also the immigrant identity crisis that I felt like I was having, and then these kids were already figuring it out. So I just wanted to list some of the genres, because there's so many genres. So Desi is a word that I use a lot, D-E-S-I, Desi. Instead of saying Indian, instead of saying Pakistani, which really denotes such national border, identities based on nations. Desi means of the country. So it's kind of a term that an umbrella term I like to use for South Asian. So there's Desi grime, there's Desi two-step, there's Bhangra muffin, there's hip-hop Bhangra, electro Bhangra, there's Asian underground, Bangla rap, Asian drum and bass. Everybody loves corner shop, right? Yay! There's a really cool like Desi Riot Girl band called the Voodoo Queens. Of course, MIA came out with Galang in 2003. Um, there's Desi R&B, which is everybody knows Jay Sean. He started out like with a Bunga producer doing more like kind of Indian. Yeah, you should check out his early stuff. It's way better. There's a record label out of London called Outcast Records I really became obsessed with. So anyway, this became the foundation of Andaz, like our party that we started at the Fez. You can click. Okay, this is a movie that I really, really love. It's called East is East. Pakistani dad, white Catholic British mom, and they're kind of like jungly family. It's really resonated with me. I mean, my parents are the opposite. I have the white dad, but there's some like sad stuff in the movie, but it just really resonated with me, and this kind of just harkens back to that. You can click. Okay. We can just click through these. These are some of the designs we did for our party, just kind of reappropriating and recontextualizing like the vintage Bollywood imagery that I grew up with. Really, I mean, kind of crude Photoshop stuff, but this was us, going into the union office, the PALS union office late at night and using Photoshop. So, anybody here know who Mike King is? Yay! Okay, so I don't know what year it was, but I run into Mike King at the Trader Joe's in Northwest, and we're in line, and he's like, "I collect your posters," and I was like, "You collect my posters?" Mike King is, go look him up. He's like infamous Portland poster designer. He does all the Monkey Presents, everything you see at the Doug Fir, that's him. He like invented that style that everybody else copies. So he's like, "I collect your designs." And I was like, whoa. He's like, "I'm getting married. I want you guys to DJ my wedding." Along with Rev Shine. So he's going to have Rev Shines do soul, and we're going to do Pungra. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. So we do his wedding. It's like 20 hipsters on a rooftop. And they're not really feeling the Bhangra, so I'm like, I'll just go out and I'll just dance a little bit. So I'm dancing, giving like the miniest dance lesson, not even what we did today. And Adam Zaks, is that his name? The guy who started Sasquatch, he's at this wedding. He writes our friend Connie a couple weeks later, "Hey, I want them to open up the dance tent at Sasquatch every night." Okay, so you can click through. So, clicking through. Okay, so here we are, Sasquatch. All of a sudden, here I am, like in front of thousands of kids, and I mean, this is after years of club DJing, of course, and I kind of skipped that whole story, but because maybe we have 5 minutes or 4. We were booked for Saturday, Sunday, Monday night. But it was the 10-year anniversary of Sasquatch, so they added Friday. They're like, "Hey, can you guys do Friday night, a 4-hour set? You'll be on the dance tent. Foo Fighters will be on the main stage." That's all that's happening that night. We're like, "Oh, yeah, sure." So I don't do a dance lesson on Friday night. This is Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But Friday night, we're DJing. The Incredible Kid goes out, just to test make sure all the equipment's working, and like 5,000 kids start screaming, and he's like, "Who's that for?" Anyway, that was for him. That was for us. I mean, people ate it up. They love it. People still come up to me to this day, to our club nights. "I saw you at Sasquatch." All the time this happens. So many people saw us there. So that was just from us making our like weird Bollywood club posters. Like that's how that happened. Okay, you can click forward. So here's me dancing around the stage. I now teach in a studio, right? And I have my own curriculum that I came up with because this is a folk dance I just learned on the dance floor. If I went to India, we went to Canada, Vancouver, BC, we went to New York. Wherever we were playing or partying, it's just like a dance language that you communicate with other Desi kids. Now you can do there's like Learn Bhangra apps and stuff. But back in the day, there wasn't anything there was no curriculum for this dance, so I kind of had to create my own. This is me just running around the stage. You can click through. So now we play, like this is us playing, famous Bungar singers. We're playing Bungar festivals in Canada. Like meeting people. This is us at Beloved. I think we've done that like 9 years. Now I have a dance troupe, teaching thousands of people, Bungra. You can keep clicking. I don't know if I got to everything. Yeah, you can keep clicking. Last year, we were the first DJs to play Music on Main outside Arlene Schnitzer. When we do these scenarios, I just dance for 2 hours, just dance. Some of my dancers, so we have a drummer. He's kind of tucked in back there. He comes down from Seattle. You can see I get to play my Pakiza visuals. This is my dance troupe. Okay, we can keep clicking. Okay, I just wanted to throw up some party photos. Who here's been to an Anjali and the Kid party? Anybody? Yes. Okay, cool. You can just click through these because I just want to talk about that, kind of tie it all together. This is our Halloween party, the year Trump won, and 2 Desi guys, a lot of Punjabi kids come to our parties from Canada. They come down from Seattle, and they come down from Vancouver. Those cities don't necessarily have, like, a consistent party like we do. Also, I think our parties are just really fun and unique, and these dudes came down from Canada, and they won second prize or something in the costume contest, and they got on the mic and they were like, "Fuck Trump, like no wall." I was like, "Yay!" Okay. This is the auntie who won, judgmental auntie with a teacup. This is my beautiful friend Sasha. This is just a month ago, our New Year's Eve party. So I just kind of want to tie it all together because DJing really gave me my voice. Like all those years of studying dance, all those years of studying painting, they were building the foundation for who I am, and I'm still a painter in my head, and I'm still a dancer, but DJing really, like, gave me so much power. You can skip through. Okay, random GQ India did a story on our party, and this is just 2 pages from it. It's like an 8-page spread. The title of the story is How Desi Parties Are Keeping Portland Weird. Okay, this is just a little shout out to our radio show on X-Ray, because we do go back to India every once in a while and collect vintage vinyl. And so I just wanted to make sure. Okay, you can leave it right there. 2 minutes? 2 minutes, okay. Thank you for your patience. This was not as bad as I thought it would be. I've had like a stomach ache for days. And then last night I was like, you're fine. Okay, I'm just gonna read it like this, sorry. So you saw some of those party photos. This is my day job. This is what we do for a living. The Incredible Kid and I, we are sole proprietors of Anjali and the Kid. There's no manager. I'm the booking agent. He works on the website. We do have a friend that helps us with design now because that was hard on our relationship. Because I think my aesthetic's better. So we don't have those fights as much anymore. Don't forget to take a sticker when you leave. Okay. So the politics of throwing parties for me is about more than just getting drunk. It's about taking up space and controlling sound systems. It's about connecting with our diaspora selves on the dance floor. It's about sharing our music with each other. It's about sharing our dance moves with each other. It's about healing together. It's about creating a space for other immigrant kids and other mixed kids. And it's a space for us to feel at home. Both of us, like the Incredible Kid, lifting me up and centering me all these years. We try to do that by booking other women DJs. We try to book other immigrant DJs, other immigrant women DJs, and also I give DJ lessons sometimes. I have so much knowledge. I'm really happy to share with other women. 'Cause it's like can be a scary thing to get into. Um, my aim is to promote solidarity on the dance floor and to center the music of the working class, to disrupt the mainstream and to cultivate beauty in grimy clubs. I'm getting so emotional. Okay. So this is our service to the community. Because we're playing other people's music. We don't make music. We don't do edits or remixes. We are selectors that mix other people's music. But it is our service to the community, and that's why we do our weekly radio shows. We don't get paid for those. It's all volunteer work. I'm fighting hard to keep Portland brown. So much gentrification happening here, and I just want to kind of acknowledge that. And I also want to take advantage of the power that I have to speak about all the shit that's going on in India. It's really bad right now. So thank you for listening to me. Thanks for your patience. Thank you for having me.